Okay, hello guys. I'm a little bit nervous. This is something that I have been researching, learning, and talking about, not on the internet, but to people in real life for a very long time. I started doing research in 2007. By 2010, I was headlong into looking at what was going on in all things, follow the money. But I am a born and raised Floridian, so therefore I have been in Florida my whole life, and Disney has always rubbed me absolutely the wrong way. So I started doing a lot of research into Disney a long time ago. I mean, we're in 2020 right now, so this is going on about 13 years, give or take 11, of really getting into it. So I feel that now is the right time to really put this out there. Because a lot of people are starting to ask good questions and starting to look around. Unfortunately, back when I first started looking at this stuff, there was a lot of, hold on, let me close the laptop so you're not getting blinded with weird glare. There was a lot of available information at the time. Well, you had to dig hard, but you could find things on the internet that now, because of censorship and how everything's going, that you could never find again. I had at the time saved that information, but that computer died a long time ago and I don't have it anymore. So I'm going to try to keep this short and sweet as far as my talkings. I have a lot to show you, and I don't have a huge amount of memory on this old hand-me-down iPad that I'm using. So I'm going to go through a couple of things that at the time I had reference for. We're talking 2010 roughly, when I had gotten these journalistic articles, and there was different, I had a lot of information. It was really good. And it was sourced, but now you can't. I mean, good luck if you go and Google anything on Disney, even if you're using like DuckDuckGo or any other search engine. You're not going to find practically anything that tells you actually what they're doing or what they're about. They're very good at hiding things, and you have all these fact checker garbage sites. So please, anything that's owned by George Soros, yeah, like I'm going to listen to you. But anyways, so I'm going to go over, I guess, what would be, considered hearsay first, because I don't have a way to prove this to you, and then I will go into things, and I'm going to cite all kinds of information for you. I screenshotted a lot of the sites so that you can see the websites. You can go look for yourself, because this will all be information for, as far as what I'm showing you, this will all be information that's on the internet that is accessible. I've done a lot of old book research before. So the things that I'm going to talk about first are all things that I know from before. You don't have to believe me. I don't want you to believe me. I want you to go look for yourself. But these are things that I know from a long time ago, but I can't source any longer. So we're just going to go through those real fast, and think about them, really consider them, and then we're going to right into crazier stuff. I'm not going to go into the Freemason or Illuminati side of that. There's too much information for me to get into all of it. So this is more or less just general stuff. Well, it's a lot of stuff. It's not just general stuff. We will get into parts of it, but it's not going to be just about that. It's going to be about all kinds of things. So you just have an idea of the shit that Walt Disney was doing, planning, did. He ruined my home state as far as I'm concerned. Other people are what I refer to as Disney-tards, no offense to them, but they're a cult following. They think Disney's wonderful. They're all not from Florida. They all moved here, and they all have ruined my homeland with a grotesque cityscape, and just all the forests are gone, everything's gone. It's just crazy, crazy, crazy traffic and other things. But anyways, so here nor there, we are going to start this off. The first things I'm going to talk about is, you'll already find, if you go and look at this on the internet, you will find that basically, sorry, weird noise, Snopes fact-checked this. I fact-checked this a long time ago too, back when you had to use your brain and cite things, and you can actually pull up the death certificates of some of these people and see that they were labeled as dead outside of Disney property. That was real. That was a real thing. So the whole can't be labeled dead at Disney, if it isn't anymore, it very well was very much so real for a long time. You could go back and look at death records from before 2000 of people that had died, and they are refused to be labeled dead until they're outside. The one record specifically that was really easy to find at the time, I haven't tried to re-find it. There was an elderly man who worked there, and he got basically, they turned on one of the, I can't remember, the Skyline ride thing doesn't exist anymore, but at the time, this is like the 70s if I remember correctly, maybe early 80s. He basically got caught on one and fell to his death, and they refused to label him as dead until he was outside of the premise. Okay, so here nor there, it was I believe it to be true. I saw information for it to be true. You can't find all that anymore. So, you know, second thing that I'm going to tell you about is Disney was putting estrogen in their water, in all the swimming water once they closed down. Once they closed down the God, what was that called? River country, and they stopped using lake water. And I'll get into river country in a minute. And they started doing actual, well, not actual, but chlorinated water. You know how all the water things are now. They were pumping estrogen into the water. There was a couple of articles on that back a long time ago. Now you can't find anything that says anything about Disney doing anything, but basically the purpose of this was that if they pumped estrogen into the water, for one, it makes you more emotional, so you're more apt to feel emotion while you're at this magical place or whatever, but also estrogen, being exposed to estrogen at an early age, is not good for boys at all, and would contribute basically to homosexual tendencies or weird feminicity, which we're seeing a lot of now, you know, here nor there. But it would engage girls to start going through puberty faster. So the faster they can get you horny and having babies, the more people they have rolling in their park. The sooner you pop out babies, the sooner you're rolling in. So the whole goal was to give girls this fairy princess, oh, I want to be, you know, prince and princess mentality, get all this emotional engagement and get them married or unmarried, but popping out babies faster, younger, quicker, get them in here, more money for us. I can't find any of the information on that any longer, but it was there, I promise, you know. So don't believe me on these. If you don't want to, that's fine. I know they're real. You don't have to believe me. I can't prove them to you any longer. This was a long time ago, but nonetheless. So the next thing is that there was a program that they practiced, and this shouldn't surprise anybody. Anybody that's done real research into some of the stuff the CIA has done, this shouldn't surprise you at all. They were pumping, I don't remember now what the drug was, but they were pumping some form of a relaxing, make you feel happy and relaxed, opioid-esque, you know, reaction into the air ducts. So like on Space Mountain, for example, and I remember the last time I went to Disney, I was 18 years old, so it was 13 years ago, okay? I remember specifically standing in Space Mountain, and after we left, saying like, God, that was weird. It was like I was so weirdly calm in there for no, like, not that I wasn't calm, but that was like, almost like I remember being like, I felt like I was being drugged. It was very weird. And this was before I knew any of these things. This was right before I started really researching these things. So it was something that spiked, and I remembered very strongly a few years later. So it was like, oh, I called that when I was there, because I'm very in tune with myself, so it's like weird to just randomly feel like you're like on a freaking Prozac or something, you know what I mean? But anyways, they were pumping these relaxing, you know, Xanax-esque, you know, calming and happifying, Brave New World, anybody, drugs into the air-conditioned rides to keep people from being upset and frustrated, and to keep people calm while you're waiting in your gajillion hour-long lines while you paid way too much money for those Disney tickets. Once again, this is the list of things that I can't prove to you any longer. I used to have this information saved a long time ago. Computer's gone. So here nor there, take it as you will. The final thing is that Disney has its own police force. So by this I mean they are technically their own jurisdiction, and part of this will make more sense later, where you can try to report things that happen at Disney, and if you really try to really actually get somewhere with it, you'll basically find that the police or the sheriff are basically going to tell you that's out of their jurisdiction and they can't do anything about it, because Disney is higher than law. Basically, they have their own police. Now, you know, like I said, I had proof. It's gone a long time. Been a long time. Been like 10 years since I saved all that stuff. Yeah, computer's way long. But so those are all things just to think about. I can't prove them to you at this point, but think about it. So moving along into things I will have cited information for that you guys can see, that I'll post for you after, either during or after the end of this. Anything that's like articles, I'll list for you so you can actually read them at the very end of the video, so you can just dive in, you know. So don't mind me, I'm going to look down because I took a lot of notes so that I wouldn't forget anything or get distracted, because I have a little bit of memory left on here to be able to record this while adding everything together, so I got to do this, you know, organized. Anyways, so River Country, which is Disney World's first water park. It was ran off of a river. It's still there. They abandoned it, but it's floating out there. There's actually some cool photos. If you go and you look, there was a Flurbex, a Florida urban exploring group that floated out in the middle of the night on these floats, because you're not allowed to go out there, and took a bunch of pictures. Pretty fucking creepy, actually. terrifying. And a lot of it makes a lot more sense with some of the reasons that they shut down when you go and look at those pictures. But anyways, so River Country closed in 2002, supposedly because a child died of an amoeba that randomly like made his brain have a neurological freeze and he died. Okay, so before that, Disney got into a lot of trouble in 1989, and they ended up settling in court in 1990 for 16 cases of animal abuse. They were, first off, a lot of Florida wildlife is underneath endangerment because people are murdering it and because they're tearing down everything for Disney World. So, you know, I'm not kidding. So much has been torn down for Disney, and for the people to move in here to go live around Disney is disgusting. But so, hawks, vultures, egrets, and ibises are all endangered. I mean, there's way more than that, but as far as what was going on with Disney, those are all endangered species. There was also this special bird, but I couldn't remember what it was called, and I couldn't find the article on it because this was a long time ago too. But all this I've rechecked, and so it's still out there and findable, so I'll show you. But anyways, they ended up settling on $95,000 to get out of court because they had already had their ego bruised by this, you know, being noticed in the news, you know, in 1989. And so basically they had been shooting hawks with rifles. They were beating vultures to death with sticks. They were found to have these metal tin sheds that they were stuffing vultures into with limited food and water, if any. And there, I mean, and in these little, there was no airflow, there was no windows, there was no nothing. If you've ever been to Florida, you know you would die. People die in their cars every year from sitting in them too long with no air conditioning on, like children. So basically they were torturing those animals, and they were going around and killing and knocking out egrets and ibises' eggs because they found these birds to be literally noisy and encumbersome to their fake Disney experience. So, but they got found for that. It got reported by somebody noticed, and Disney officials at the time, Ridgway was the official who was speaking on that, and he basically said what, you know, every Disney person says, and refused to admit any wrongdoing, and just settled to draw more negative attention because they were like, oh, that's a crappy badge on us. So just so you know, that's why River Country shut down, is because that's why they built the Animal Kingdom, was basically to hide the fact that they had gotten in a huge amount of trouble and lost part of their animal licensing and couldn't have endangered species anymore, and it was a whole thing. And their $95,000 went mostly to the Florida Wildlife Game and Wildlife Foundation to try to help. $95,000 doesn't actually do that much, but you know, at the time that was a good chunk of change. But anyways, moving right along here. So we're gonna get right into crazy things here. The CIA. So Disney, in case you don't know, Walt Disney, how he got to here. You know, he had Disneyland in California already, and he was pissed, to say the least. He actually wanted to open Disney World in St. Louis originally, but basically he was a bit of a control freak, and he wanted to be able to control everything that happened with Disney World. He was very upset that in Disneyland in California, that people had built these little hotels and stuff around. He thought it ruined the ambience of Disneyland and the aesthetic, and also he was money hungry, and he wanted to make sure he could do everything, and California wasn't letting him do all the things that he wanted to do. So he devised a plan with all of his gajillions of dollars, well, not really gajillions at the time, but he had a lot, you know, for the time, to figure out a way to come into Florida and buy out land. So he ultimately lied a lot and did a bunch of fake, shitty things to screw all these little old farmers out of their land, because if anybody actually knew what was going on in small little towns, they wouldn't have been selling him their land. But so basically, if you have done any researching into CIA, as far as some of the people, you might recognize these names, but basically Paul Hellawell, and I might be saying his name wrong, but you know, and then Wild Bill Donovan, were two notorious American spies at the time. Their skills were literally setting up fake business fronts and propaganda machines and espionage. That was what they were good at. And so basically, when Disney wanted to buy land in Florida, he hired the two of them to help him set up fake companies so that people wouldn't know he was buying the land, so that he could get it for pennies on the dollar and not have anybody try to overcharge him or charge him what it would actually be worth, because he was buying, you know, precious land that has now been ruined. But they set up, sorry, I'm trying to scoot my chair, there we go. So they set up these fake businesses so that nobody would know who was actually buying the land, and he was buying acres. Just think about this. He was buying acres at $80 an acre, not surpassing $200 an acre. That just makes me want to barf in my mouth. You know, $80 an acre. So anyways, there was people trying to figure out who it was that was buying up all this land from all these different little old, you know, farmers and little tiny families. And by the time they figured it out, it was too late. He had already bought everything, and here we are today, you know, with what's going on. But so he bought all this because he wanted to have ultimate control of what was going on. And so if you watch his Epcot video, which I'll post some of that, but you should go and watch the whole thing. It's freaking terrifying. Really terrifying. He basically goes into how in Florida there's all this magical land of his that he could buy, and because it's covered in swamps, he doesn't have to worry about people coming around, and he can just do whatever he wants, right? Well, so the two CIA dudes basically convinced him that if he really wanted to do whatever he wanted, then he needed to create his own government. So they literally staged 2 fake cities. Okay, they built fake buildings and staged 2 fake cities in order to be able to create a fake government that was around their, you know, around Disney World in order to be able to do whatever they wanted. So those cities are actually small cities today. At the time, they only had 44 residents, which were all his employees who would do whatever he told them, because otherwise he would fire them and they would get kicked out. They were being allowed to live there, you know. And that is Lake Buena Vista. Disgusting. It's disgusting to me because I've been to these places, because I've been here my whole life, and it's like, wow, you were literally a fake city. Like you were literally made so that Walt Disney could do whatever he wanted. It's disgusting. It's very creepy. Especially when we get further into this, you'll understand even more why it's creepy. If you don't already understand why it's creepy, if you have a bit of a head on your shoulders and you've been paying attention to any of the things that have been going on, then you already know why this is very weird. You know, I mean, it already should be weird. It should be weird that somebody wants to come in and, like, you know, dictatorially control an entire area of a state, like huge. 24,000 acres is what he bought, and then he made 2 little fake cities around it to be able to, you know, own. Anyways, let me find it. What is the other? Yeah. So Lake Buena Vista and Bay Lake are the 2 fake cities that he made. So when people found out that he had bought up all this land and that it was Disney and that he was doing all this, the price of acreage, for a good reason, because he had just come in and bought 27,400 acres of land, people were like, they just put their prices at 80,000 grand an acre. They were like, nope. Because you just come in and just destroy, they're just watching their, you know, whole homes be just ripped out, farmland gone, swamp gone, you know, we're in swampland, like, leave it alone. Anyways, so that was what he did in order to get Disney actually here. And, you know, he used 2 CIA front men who were incredible at espionage and propaganda, and they literally put out fake articles and stuff and try to hide what was actually happening. So there's that with, you know, with general CIA. So moving on to, well, actually, let's keep this together. I'll move into Epcot after this. We'll just stick with the CIA part. I was going to go to Epcot and then come back to it because of the way. But it's okay. So, sorry if I'm going really fast. I'm running out. I'm watching a timer up here, and I know I'm going to run out of memory on here really fast. So, if any of you have done any research into Operation Paperclip, which, in case you don't know what that is, I'll give you a little quick review, like a little debriefing on this. Operation Paperclip was done by President Truman. Well, it was agreed upon by President Truman in September of 1946. And basically, it was to bring in Nazi scientists so that Americans can get intel from what the Nazis do. And then they were supposed to go back over to Germany, and then they decided they were way too useful, and they kept them. So Alan Rules was one of these scientists, and I actually will show you where he and Disney are actually related. They're like far away cousins, but they're related. Surprise, surprise. Anyways, Alan Rules was basically, he was one of the people that helped create MK Ultra. If you don't know what MK Ultra is, it's a brainwashing program, but they mostly did it on children, and other terrible things. You know, there's many, but if I go into all this, I'm running out of time. So anyways, basically Alan Rules created those projects, and then you had this von Braun guy who worked underneath him, worked underneath the CIA and Project Paperclip and MK Ultra, or at least that is my understanding. And he contributed to the Apollo landing, and he also was working when Disney opened. Let me figure this out. He started working as a technical director on 3 different Disney shows, all that were about space. Surprise, surprise. Which was Man in Space, Man and the Moon, and then Mars and Beyond. So Project Mockingbird, which was also organized by Alan Dulles, was designed to manipulate media. If anybody of you really get into the CIA, you'll know that all media is supposed to be manipulated. Where America is basically a giant brainwashing experiment to see if we can be manipulated by the TV. We're doing a pretty good job so far of being totally manipulated by the TV all the time, or any flashing screens. But, you know, we believe what the flashing box tells us to believe, and we don't think outside of it. You're crazy if you do. Anyways, so literally, The Wizard of Oz and Alice in Wonderland and all these different things were being used as part of the MK Ultra brainwashing for children. And I will post some articles about that. I'm not going to go into all that. There's way too much. But Alice in Wonderland actually was a code for another program that came out of Nazi Germany that they were using to try to brainwash people. But there's a lot to go into that. So basically, if you really go back and look at all that, I mean, Disney literally opened and immediately hired a Nazi scientist who worked on faking space landings and brainwashing, and they created movies based off the titles of what was happening in Germany and then used them on children. You know, just jumping right along here. So, that being said, let's go to creepy Epcot. Okay, so, Epcot. Experimental prototype city of tomorrow.
Experimental prototype city of tomorrow. We call it Epcot.
Or community of tomorrow. He changed it up a couple of times. If you don't know what Epcot is, Epcot was supposed to be basically a giant communist city. That was dystopian, utopian. I don't think it'd be utopian. I'm pretty sure it'd be dystopian because Disney was kind of creepy. He had some weird things going on. Anyways, and I will show you the whole thing. If you've never watched Disney's full thing on Epcot, go watch it. It's on YouTube. You can watch this whole little Epcot. It's very weird. And if you know anything about symbolism, please do pay attention to the map layouts. Pay attention to how they have things tiered. I mean, literally the layout of Epcot is a giant, all-seeing eye. I mean, he's got it right there, and I'll show you a screenshot of that, like right in here somewhere here in a minute. But anyways, so let me see. Blah blah blah. Sorry, I'm checking my notes. Make sure I'm not skipping anything. So one of the things that is really weird with Epcot, outside of the fact that Disney literally wanted to have 20,000 people live in his what was supposed to be a theme park, but he actually didn't really want Disney World to be a theme park. He built the theme park in order to be able to get people off his back to be able to build Epcot. He wanted to build this giant communist city. He wanted to have 20,000 people living there. It was 3-tiered, and it was going to be a dome, like how Flat Earth looks. If you ever looked at how Flat Earth is like perceived, not saying that it is Flat Earth, but just very interesting the way he did it. Anyways, it was supposed to be a dome, so literally people were going to live inside, like a whole city inside of a dome. You were supposed to be in a completely temperature-controlled environment.
But most important, this entire 50 acres of city streets and buildings will be completely enclosed. In this climate-controlled environment, shoppers and theater goers and people just out for a stroll will enjoy ideal weather conditions, protected day and night from rain, heat and cold, and humidity. Here the pedestrian will be king, free to walk and browse without fear of motorized vehicles.
In a prototype city that's always changing, and you're being completely monitored all the time, and you're literally a guinea pig in his experiment. Very weird. And then it had underground systems for transportation and stuff, which, in case you didn't know, Epcot didn't get finished in that regard for a couple of reasons, but they did finish the underground city. So when you think about how many children go missing a year at Disney, you maybe wonder why there's so many underground tunnels happening underneath all of Disney. Like, they were supposed to be a whole entire city, 3-leveled, enclosed. Okay, just think about that.
Let's look at another view of Epcot's transportation hub and see how traffic flows through the heart of the city on 3 separate levels.
But basically what ended up happening is Epcot didn't get built all the way, not in the way that he wanted it anyways, because for one, they were having a really hard time surveying all the land to actually build it out, because first, it was swampland. Second, in Florida, there is lots of, poison snakes and other such things, so they were having a really hard time getting surveyors to get all this land surveyed and figured out how they were even going to do this, because, I mean, he literally bought a swamp, and expected that to just be quick. And so anyways, up until his dying day, when he was dying of lung cancer in a hospital, he was still working and designing on Epcot. He was determined it was going to happen. When he died, basically, the governor of Florida at the time, shame on you, and I don't remember what the guy's name is, but it doesn't matter. He was like all about it apparently, and basically was like trying to push it along. And the new CEO of Disney, Card Walker, was also trying to push it along still, but the board basically was wary of the idea, and they were like, we don't know that people are really going to be down for that. That's kind of weird. You literally want people to come in and live in a city that they work in and literally exist inside of a bubble that is Disney World, and we don't think that's a great idea. We don't think people are going to be down for being surveilled all the time. And so they kind of like poo-pooed it and was like, yeah, how about we don't really do that? And so they at least didn't think it was going to work in its original incarnation. And so they didn't feel that it would be good. They just, no. And so basically they ended up building Celebration, which is another city in Florida. And that is a community that follows some of those attributes, not all of them. It doesn't have this whole like built-in transportation system, and it's not based on futurism, which was what Disney was all about, was like postmodernism and futurism, like the idea of like everything looking really cool 50s. I like futurism, so I think it looks cool. But anyways, so they went with what they call new urbanism, which basically is just stereotypical garbage housing. And one thing I think is really funny that I found that I've never seen before is that apparently Singapore, don't know if you know anything about Singapore, but if you don't, go look it up, is actually often stated to be the real life version of Epcot, except it's listed as Disney World with a death penalty. Because of their extreme city planning, which was what he was doing like for the whole rest of the end of his life about Epcot, and the extreme cleanliness and organization that Walt wanted, it followed the exact same thing that was going on in Singapore, except you get murdered if you do something they don't like. Wouldn't be surprised if that's how Disney went, because they got some weird things. But so, on a side note that's a lot of information, and I'm trying not to totally blow through this, but I have a lot to say. So, something to consider as well that I'm going to add up to all of this. I found some really interesting things. Disney Cruise Line. So everybody, obviously, to some degree or another, I assume, has heard about what's going on with Epstein Island and Ghislaine Maxwell, or however you say her damn name. I always mess it up. Well, there's some information that started floating around the past couple of days about how Disney Cruise Lines were going over to Little St. James Island, which was Epstein Island. So I went and started really looking into that. And it's funny because, there's all this, everything with QAnon and Post, and I never really followed Q. I was looking at all this way before QAnon existed. QAnon's a relatively new thing, so it's interesting to me to come back and like look at this. People be like, check the Q post, and I'm like, what's that? And then I go and look at it, and I'm like, oh, you mean what I was telling people in like 2010? I was told I was crazy, got written up at work, and got in trouble and chastised, and had my freedom of speech removed at jobs because they're like, you can't talk about this. Anyways, beyond the point. So yes, everything that QAnon talks about is generally on point to everything I have learned, so they're on the right path. But they had pointed out this thing about the Disney cruise ships. I had never looked at this before. So I went and started looking. I'll post the things here because I found another one actually. So there is a now I don't remember what it's called. There's a snorkeling adventure that you can do through one of the Disney cruise lines. And make sure to read all the little disclaimers about how like, oh, this isn't really through Disney, it's through a separate company, and if you get something bad happening, Disney's fault, blah blah blah. But anyways, it directly is talking about how it goes to Little St. James Island. Why would it be going there? Why would a Disney cruise line be going to Epstein's Creepo Island? It's not part of a cruise ship situation here. It's a private island owned by a creepy millionaire. Like, so why would a cruise ship full of children be going there? So that was weird. And I was like, is that really, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised by any means, but I had to go really dig. So I went and I dug, and I was looking and I was like, holy crap, it is. So then I started really searching all these other little options you can do in the cruise ships. And there's another one, and I will show you, that literally it goes to St. John's Island, which is right next to Little James Island, and it has a disclaimer that says that children underneath the age of 18 need to be with their parents, except for teenager specific adventures. Teen adventures, specifically for teens, are for teens only. Does that not ring 1,000 alarms saying like, hold on, wait, what? Disney, you have like the most insane security all over the place, but you can never find your missing children. Yet, if you go and watch, like, for example, Adam the Woo, who's a guy who goes and does urban exploring, he went into Disney one time and opened a wrong door, and they were on him in like less than 3 seconds. Yet you have like thousands of children go missing there literally all the time, and you can't find any of them. And then you have all these different disclaimers and all, oh, safety, don't get us in trouble, Disney, oh, our image. But then you have a teen adventure that teens are supposed to go on by themselves on St. John Island. Just throwing it out there. Just a little, you know. So anyways, guys, that is a giant pile of information really fast. Sorry if I went through that exorbitantly fast. I know I can talk really fast. If you would like direction as to where to look or find this information, feel free to reach out. I will help. I will probably eventually make another video on this, going more further into other sides, because I mean, you could definitely go into Disney being a Mason. The symbology is ridiculous. They have symbolism all over the damn place, especially in their movies, but that's kind of out there already. So I mean, just, you know, open your eyes, look, read, find what's going on. There's a lot of stuff out there, and a lot of people are starting to put out information. So I figured this touched a lot of good points to kind of give people ideas. And not to mention that with the whole, you know, Epstein being ABC hiding the Epstein story from that one journalist, I can't think of her name. I'll put up a video for it. Veritas came out about it relatively recently. But ABC is owned by Disney. Like, if you go and look at what Disney owns, which is practically fucking everything, and then I can't even find an updated list on that because they bought out more companies since I found one. I'll put that up for you, but they've bought out way more since then. But, you know, like, they literally control the majority of the media content. So, of course, they're going to lie to you.
3 years. I've had this interview with Virginia Roberts. We would not put it on the air. First of all, I was told, who's Jeffrey Epstein? No one knows who that is. This is a stupid story. Then the palace found out that we had her whole allegations about Prince Andrew and threatened us a million different ways. We were so afraid we wouldn't be able to interview Kate and Will that also quashed the story. And then Alan Dershowitz was also implicated in it because of the planes. She told me everything. She had pictures. She had everything. She was in hiding for 12 years. We convinced her to come out. We convinced her to talk to us. It was unbelievable what we had. Clinton. We had everything. I tried for 3 years to get it on, to no avail, and now it's all coming out, and it's like these new revelations, and I freaking had all of it. I'm so pissed right now. Like, every day I get more and more pissed because I'm just like, oh my God, what we had was unreal. Other women backing it up. Hey, yep. Brad Edwards, the attorney, 3 years ago, saying there will come a day when we will realize Jeffrey Epstein was the most prolific pedophile this country has ever known. I had it all 3 years ago.
That's tape leaked to us by our latest network insider. This brave insider works at ABC News. ABC News anchorwoman Amy Robach is talking to her producer on a hot mic. She says she had the Jeffrey Epstein story 3 years ago, and her bosses at ABC News spiked it. Our insider told us this tape was recorded earlier this year in late August, a day or so after this NPR report came out sharply criticizing ABC News for not broadcasting the Robach-Giuffre interview years ago.
ABC has episodically covered the scandal, yet the interview was never broadcast, and Giuffre says she was never told why.
But the creepy thing is that we would make access to all of these high-profile people. Well, then I got a little concerned about why I couldn't get on.
On the leaked insider tape, Amy Robach says she had the Jeffrey Epstein story 3 years prior, but her exclusive interview was shelved. Robach says in the leaked tape there was a lot of pressure from Buckingham Palace. According to NPR, the famed lawyer Alan Dershowitz also pressured the network to kill the story.
Shortly before the interview was due to air, Harvard emeritus law professor Alan Dershowitz called the network. He was also one of Epstein's lead defense attorneys.
We wonder if the story was killed to protect the rich and powerful. It seems few were worried about protecting the women who may have been Jeffrey Epstein's victims. Remember, Epstein was still a free man 3 years ago. And just to be clear, the interview has still not aired. What is ABC News waiting for, or who are they still protecting?
She told me everything. She had pictures. She had everything. She was in hiding for 12 years. We convinced her to come out. We convinced her to talk to us. It was unbelievable what we had. Clinton. We had everything.
Robach also has no doubt about what happened to Epstein when he finally was arrested and jailed.
So do I think he was killed? 100%. Yes, I do. Because he made his whole living blackmailing people. Yeah. There were a lot of men in those planes, a lot of men who visited that island, a lot of powerful men who came into that apartment.
I mean, when I heard he was found dead, this was just someone was money.
I knew immediately. And they made it seem as though he made that suicide attempt 2 weeks earlier, but his lawyers claimed that he was roughed up by his cellmate around the neck. That was all like to plant the seed, and then that's why I really believe it, like really believe it.
The last of the leaked tape has Robach talking about alleged Epstein conspirator Ghislaine Maxwell and how she should be very careful.
He's got to have left evidence like in the unexplained.
Well, Ghislaine Maxwell, who I had all sorts of stuff on her too. I love it. I'm like, it's so funny to hear everyone say her name now because I'm like, oh my God, like I had all this, and everyone was like, who's that? Who cares? I kept getting that. Who cares? She knows everything. She knows. She should be careful. Well, she was his, like, she went out and recruited all of these girls.
Stand by. Chicago.
She should watch her back. Because if she goes, I mean, I'd have like security guards all around me.
The brave insider who leaked this tape to us does not know who at ABC News spiked the story, but someone at ABC does. Our question: who killed the Epstein story at ABC News and why? Help us find out. James Goldston is the president of ABC News. What did he know, and when did he know it?